And an escalation on two fronts. On Wednesday, Israel's government granted final approval for a controversial settlement in the occupied West Bank that effectively cuts the territory in two. The E1 bloc backs up to the already large settlement of Maale Adumim, which, along with other settlements, is considered illegal under international law. Israeli settlement in E1 has been under consideration for more than 20 years, but was shelved following pressure from previous U.S. administrations. Palestinians and human rights groups say settlements in the area could end any hope for a future Palestinian state. Well, the German Foreign Ministry has come down hard on the now approved E1 settlement.
We strongly reject the settlement project E1. The position of the German government is clear. We strongly reject this approval. The settlement construction violates international law and relevant UN Security Council resolutions. It hinders a negotiated two-state solution and an end to the Israeli occupation of the West Bank, as called for by the International Court of Justice.
And not just here in Germany, concern is growing in the wider Arab world regarding events in Israel and the Palestinian territories. Israel's neighbor, Jordan, has accused Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of wanting to keep the Middle East at war.
The Israeli Prime Minister is pursuing a destructive project aimed at keeping the region trapped in conflict and crises. This project is evident in the aggression against Gaza, the starvation of Palestinians, and the attempts to displace them, which we absolutely reject.
And joining me now are two men whose professional and personal lives are to a large extent defined by the Israeli-Palestinian existence. Samer Sinijlawi is a Palestinian activist. He wrote an article for The Atlantic last year, you may remember, on how to salvage a two-state solution. He's to my far right. And here to my near right is Dan Sobovitz. He's an Israeli-European entrepreneur and activist. He's also a former advisor to the European Commission. Gentlemen, it's good to have you with us. We're excited that we've got Palestinian and Israeli sitting together today to talk about possible paths forward in the Middle East, because it's something that isn't discussed that much today. I want to ask you that before we get into that, your reactions to what we've seen happen in the last 24 hours.
Well, this is more of the same. I think the lack of political will from the relevant leadership in the Middle East, whether Israeli or Hamas leadership, and I can say President Abbas for his silent mood of attitude, is not very much involved diplomatically into trying to find an exit away from the crisis in Gaza. So this is a continuation of Bibi's plan. Let me tell you something. I think that Benjamin Netanyahu is a person that sincerely looks for peace and wants peace. A peace within his family with Sarah and Yair, and a peace within his coalition with Smotrich and Ben Gvir. And to have peace with these people, he needs to continue fighting and to have an open-ended war. He doesn't want to stop. So it was in January 2024, he asked Biden if he gives him a couple of weeks to shake in Khan Yunis. And then he said, it's Rafah, the most important. And now he says it's Gaza City. It never ends. He wants to continue.
Is that how you see it too, dude?
So first you said you're happy to have an Israeli and a Palestinian in your show, and I think it's important for us also, and I'm always very happy to be with Samer. So thank you for having us together. You asked about the last 24 hours. I would stretch it to the last 36 hours, because on Sunday we saw one of the largest demonstrations by the Israeli public saying loud and clear, end the war, bring back the hostages. Enough also with what we're doing in Gaza. And just shortly after, the government, in complete oblivion of what the streets are saying, what the polls are saying, are just going ahead as if nothing happened. I think it's important that the world sees that this government doesn't speak for most Israelis, and the Israelis know what they want, and it's definitely not that.
But the government is in power. I mean, it's the same way for the Israelis and for the Palestinians at the moment, isn't it? What the public say they want is not what the political establishment is giving them.
And yet in a democracy, you would expect that the government would still listen and understand that dramatic decisions such as these, which are unprecedented in Israeli history, and especially the next step, which is going to cost lives of Palestinians, of Israeli soldiers, and most probably of the hostages, God forbid, this is not a decision that a government, even if it was democratically elected, can take against the masses on the streets. And they're doing it, as you say, they can.
I'm wondering, though, what is the next step? I mean, you've got more escalation. I mean, when is the war against Hamas over? When can we say peace comes to Gaza?
Never. And that's exactly the thing. As long as there's one activist militant of Hamas, Netanyahu will have the excuse to continue the war, no?
Well, unfortunately, we don't have only 50 Israeli hostages in Gaza. We have an additional of 2 million Palestinian hostages. All of them are hostages of Hamas. Hamas is sheltering themselves in the bunkers, their fighters, and they are leaving the population to pay the price above the ground. Most of the victims are civilians, are kids, are women, and those are the people who are paying the heavy price. And I would say that now the public opinion in Israel sees those soldiers who are on daily basis losing their lives, that they are losing their lives for zero benefit. There is nothing that the Israelis can gain from the continuation of war.
The soldiers, the hostages at risk, and I would add more and more Israelis are also sensitive to the death toll on innocent Palestinians. We're seeing that also in the demonstrations.
Do you get the impression, too, that in the media in Israel that the plight of the Palestinians is reflected the way it is in media here?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, it's not.
No, there are many reasons for that. I think one of which is that Israeli journalists are also Israeli citizens. They also do their reserve. They're also shocked by what happened. They're in the same state of shock as Israeli society. It's very difficult for them. I heard recently Ilana Dayan, one of the most respected Israeli journalists, saying that on CNN to Christian Amanpour. It's difficult for them to take a step backwards. They're not objective when they're, you can be objective when looking at it because you're on either side. I think for them it's much more difficult.
Well, but even if we were to have an end to the fighting in Gaza, you've still got the question, how do we create this Palestinian state? And then you've got the news today about what's happening in the occupied West Bank with this approval of a settlement that basically is going to cut the West Bank in two. It's going to make it impossible to draw a contiguous line for a Palestinian state. How do you have progress towards a two-state solution if you can't even draw it on the map?
Well, let me tell you that the war that is happening now, starting from the 7th of October, the atrocities of Hamas and the continued war in Gaza by the Israeli government is a war between the worst of the Palestinians and the Israelis. At one side, Hamas was raising the slogan from the river to the sea. They wanted to eliminate Israel, and that's why they launched their attack. And now we have the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, says, I am very much connected to the greater Israel vision. So it's from the river to the river. It's from Syria to Egypt. But whatever happens, this war is going to continue as far as Benjamin Netanyahu, Hamas, and Abbas are in power. If we are stuck with one of them, we will continue to pay heavy price, both Israelis and Palestinians. But I think what has happened on the 7th of October and this war for 22 months have brought Palestinians and Israeli closer to political horizons. It did not distance us because we have learned something. With using the maximum violence from both sides, we are still 7 million Palestinians, 7 million Israeli Jews living in the same land.
Do you think Gazans feel that way? Do you think people who live in the Gaza Strip feel closer to Israelis?
Well, the people in Gaza really care now about a bottle of water.
Right.
They don't have the privilege to look and explore political horizons. But I am sure that today we are one election far away from peace. We are one leader far away from peace. There is elections that will happen in Israel in 2026. It can be early election in January to March, or it can be as scheduled in November. And President Abbas has committed, as part of the package of recognizing the state of Palestine by France and other countries, to organize a presidential and legislative elections that didn't happen, that he blocked for the last 20 years. If these two elections will result if we, in our elections, we will defeat Hamas. The only way that we can defeat Hamas is by election boxes, not by a continuation of war in Gaza. If we defeat Hamas, if the Israelis will vote to a coalition that will endorse exploring political horizons, then we are in a new era.
You're speaking to a functioning civil society and a functioning democracy. Many people would say that it's broken on both sides at the moment, which brings us to why you gentlemen are here in Berlin right now.
Maybe in that context, there's also an international context. So Israel is right now, this government is isolating Israel from the Western world. It's not only the recognition of Palestine by the major Western world powers in a few weeks now in New York. You said France, Canada, the UK, Australia. So, I mean, there will be reactions to this decision of E1. And as Samuel said, this government is not going to be there forever. And I don't think anything is irreversible. The purpose there, and they say it, as much as we're saying this explicitly, is to make sure that a Palestinian state is never possible. But nothing is irreversible. And I think that the reaction is going to be harsh to this decision.
But you both of you are saying we need to get rid of Hamas. The government of Netanyahu needs to be history, and the government of Mahmoud Abbas needs to be history. Do those things happen at the same time? I mean, we're talking about political players here. We know what politicians...
Yeah, one will lead to another. If Bibi disappears, then automatically there will be no new horizons for changing power on the Palestinian side. But let me tell you what another challenge we are facing as Palestinians and Israelis, a common enemy. It's the hard feelings that we have in our hearts. We need to defeat... It's both Palestinians and Israelis. They have a cocktail of hard feelings in their hearts. Pain, sadness, hatred. It's there because of what's happening. We are both living the same trauma. We need to have a leadership that will focus on defeating these hard feelings, bringing Israelis and Palestinians to their normality. We have a strong common humanity that bonds us together.
Does that include Israel helping to rebuild Gaza?
A future government, inshallah, I hope. But I think I agree with Sana that this terrible tragedy, which is unprecedented in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, is also an opportunity. We reached a point that we cannot continue as we have until now. It's now clear on both the Palestinian and the Israeli side that this modus operandi can no longer continue, and the Gazans probably have nothing more to lose. Anything would be better than this, anything.
I mean, I appreciate your optimism, but when I look at the map, I ask myself, how are you going to draw lines that give you this two-state solution? Are the settlers, the Jewish settlers, are they going to be willing to give back what they've taken?
I happen to have grown up in one of those.
Yes.
It might look complicated. It is not complicated. There are 10 different scenarios of how to draw the lines of the borders, or in accordance to the 1967 borders. Or what kind of scenario do we agree on in Jerusalem, or settlements or refugees? But again, the most important challenge is how can we make Israelis gain trust and confidence that Palestinians will not possess a threat. Yes, the fear inside the heart of the Israelis is our challenge. And them gaining our trust that we can build up some kind of two-state solution that can coexist.
The next Israeli prime minister, if he or she wants to pick up the phone and call the leader of the Palestinians, who would that person be? Who should that person be?
It should be institutions. We need to build institutions.
There's got to be someone to talk to, though.
Well, I think the most strongest candidate that can be an acceptable, respectful president for the Palestinians, somebody like Dr. Nasser al-Qudwa, who is an opponent to Abbas. He comes from Fatah. He's from Khan Yunis. He has been a diplomat. He's not part of the corrupt. Palestinians are fed up from the destruction that Hamas brought upon them in Gaza and the corruption that Abbas brought upon them in the West Bank. So such a profile of person can be a unifying Palestinian that can gain the trust of the international community, and he can create a working relationship with the Israelis. So there are good names, but we need to build up our institutions, because it's not enough the recognition of the international community for the state of Palestine. States, we build it through institutions and facts. So we need to build up the democratic institutions and parties that will bring up such a leader and change the dynamics of relation between us and the Israelis.
I've got about a minute left. I just want to ask both of you, where do you get what seems to be an eternal reservoir of optimism and hope for the future of the Israelis and the Palestinians?
Well, going back to your question and to what Sana just said, the problem is not where to draw the line. The problem is not logistic, it's not geographic. The problem is political will. The problem is leadership on both sides. And the problem is, and that's where I see the opportunity, that this trauma has shown both sides that nothing can be worse than this. Mm-hmm. Anything would be a better future for both sides. And that is the opportunity that now we would emerge new institutions and new leadership who would have the vision and would have the courage to get us out of this quagmire.
The source of hope is our knowledge to the Israelis and Palestinians. We know our peoples. Mm-hmm. Most of them would like to exit this conflict, but they are confused and manipulated by political leaders that plays with their minds, brainwash them, and play on the mistrust. Those Palestinians we know and those Israelis we know are making us so confident that peace is not fantasy. Denying it is the fantasy.
And two states created in your lifetime?
Absolutely.
Yeah, soon.
Okay.
In a few years.
All right. Dan and Summer, to both of you, thank you. It's good to have you here at the table. It's good to have two people talking about the same goals coming from two very different sides. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, to help us understand the impact of this settlement plan, I can now talk to Alon Cohen Lifshitz. He's a senior planner and advisor at Bimkom, an Israeli NGO that promotes equality in planning and land rights. Thanks for joining us. You've seen this. You've said that the E1 settlement plan is a potential war crime due to the forced displacement of Palestinian communities. Can you give us a sense of what this will mean for people if the plan goes ahead?
Okay, usually in many cases, the idea of a plan is something positive. However, in the case of Israel, and especially in the West Bank, it's really something that about actually the great humiliation of many people. And in this case, it's the Bedouin communities, the indigenous people, the protected persons, which most of them are refugees from Israel, that are in this area for ages. And now, with this approval of the plan, will have to forcibly transfer. So this is really a war crime, and this is in a way one of the aims of the plan. Even if some people that only those living in the area will be deported, it still means that many others in the area will be deported as well. And there are about a few thousand Bedouin living in this area, and they are all at risk if this plan will go ahead and will be implemented.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but this E1 plan effectively splits the West Bank, which is already very fragmented, as we know. Critics say that this is the death knell for any two-state solution. What does that fragmentation look like in practice, and how does it affect people on the ground?
Okay, from a planning perspective, all the idea of the settlement enterprise was to create a matrix of control. They were not built with a planning rationale. They were built on hills and far from each other. And the main idea is to create, as I said, matrix of control. And here, this case is a bit different because it's not just a very small plan. It's a huge plan which covers a huge area, and will be affected all the West Bank. So while the built-up area of the settlements is the generator of the fragmentation of the West Bank, which actually become areas A, B, and C with Oslo Accord, in this case, it will cut completely the possibility of access or viable access between the north part of the West Bank and the south part.
This plan has been around for decades and it's been repeatedly delayed under international pressure. Why do you think this is moving ahead now, and what does this shift tell us?
Well, I think although, the claims of the subcommittee of objections to what we raise as a war crime was that it's political, the only thing that we can say about this plan that it's political. And it came, of course, with a reaction by Smotrich, the Minister of Finance, to the declaration of some EU member state and Australia and Canada to recognize Palestine. And this is what he would like to do, to put another name in the coffin of the Palestinian State. So it's only political. There is nothing that really stands behind it. There is no need, no justification for this plan. There is enough area to build within Maale Adumim, not that we are really promoting it, but still it's something that should be in mind, that people don't really need that plan. It's only political, and it's only to humiliate other people.
So the authorization is considered the final approval of the plan. Is it now a sure thing, this E1 plan?
Well, it appears that it will be very hard to prevent it, but still we will do our best to go from the legal perspective. We will go to the court and we'll try to put stick in the wheels and to buy more time. And I believe that it won't be easy, since it's hard to trust this court these days. But we have a lot of very good argument which might put the stick on the wheel.
What about this international pressure that has stopped this plan from going ahead so far? Has Israel simply stopped listening?
Well, it was mainly related to the U.S. government, which will change. And now when Trump is in the office, I believe it will be very hard to prevent it. The U.S. government stopped this plan for more than 20 years. And now I think that there is a green light, or actually nobody's asked nobody.
All right, then if this construction does go ahead, what can be done, or what will be done or won't be done to protect the rights of Palestinian communities there?
At the moment, I think we only have the legal option and the international option. Of course, we are using you to raise the awareness, and this is very important to take part with this show. However, it's hard to tell what will be. We will do our best, and there are a lot of partners and stakeholders that will do their best to prevent this disaster to happen.
All right, Alon Cohen Lifshitz, Senior Planner and Advisor with Israeli NGO Bimkom, thank you very much for joining the program today.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And joining me now is Khaled Elgindy, a visiting scholar at Georgetown University's Center for Contemporary Arab Studies and a former advisor to Palestinian leadership during permanent status negotiations with Israel in the 2000s. Khaled, I want to start off by asking you about Israel's offensive to take over Gaza City. Israel says it has to take over the city because it's a Hamas stronghold. How strong is Hamas in Gaza City?
I mean, we've seen this before. We've seen time and again over the last 2 years, Israel has said we have to take Rafah because it's a Hamas stronghold. We have to take Khan Yunis because it's a Hamas stronghold. We have to destroy everything in our path. And so it's not really the case that Hamas's forces are concentrated in Gaza. They're actually more concentrated in the center of the Gaza Strip. But this is part of a systematic plan by Israel to destroy the Gaza Strip and to make it uninhabitable in order to push the population out. I mean, this is the message that we're hearing directly from the Israeli leadership.
Now, Israel has not yet given its response to a ceasefire proposal put forward by mediators. Hamas says it has approved the plan. When and how do you expect Israel to respond?
Well, supposedly the Israeli leadership is supposed to respond by Friday, but I think it's clear that they're voting with their feet, so to speak. Their response to the ceasefire deal that is on the table is already out there, and that is they are moving ahead with the plan to conquer and eventually to destroy Gaza City. And we've seen time and again ceasefire deals that were either rejected by Israel or accepted and then unilaterally breached. Most importantly, in March, when there was a ceasefire deal in place in which hostages were being released, food was reaching the population in Gaza. and there was some optimism. And then Israel decided unilaterally in March to abandon that ceasefire. I think it's pretty clear by now that Prime Minister Netanyahu would like this war to continue indefinitely because it is what is keeping him in power. His extreme coalition partners like Smotrich and Ben Gvir have threatened to leave the coalition if he signs any kind of ceasefire deal. And so a ceasefire deal is not in his personal interest, even though it might be in the interests of the Israeli public, as well as Palestinians, of course.
And let's talk briefly about the settlement plans Israel's government has just approved in the occupied West Bank. They'd been stalled for decades. What could this settlement project mean for the prospect of a two-state solution?
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why this E1 program, this E1 settlement project is called a doomsday settlement. Even though all settlements are illegal under international law and all of them harm Palestinian interests, they're built on Palestinian land. The E1 project in particular is known for almost single-handedly destroying any prospect of a Palestinian state because Palestinian East Jerusalem is already surrounded by a block of settlements to the north and the south. And the E1 project would complete that circle of settlements around Palestinian East Jerusalem and sever it from the rest of the West Bank, and at the same time cut the West Bank in half. So it is known, this is the project that has been out there. It's been known to the international community for many years, and it has been delayed, but this time they're going ahead.
Khaled Elgindy, thank you very much.
Thank you.